I'm here at the Australian War Memorial in Canberra. The Bible has influenced like the ANZACs and I guess everything related to Australian wars. If you're watching this video and you're unfamiliar with the ANZACs, that stands for Australian and New Zealand Army Corps. They were the people who landed in Gallipoli on the 25th of April 1915. It was when they arrived to fight in World War I. It's now a big deal here in Australia. We have ANZAC Day every year on the 25th of April. One thing I did want to talk about is this. I'm not talking about the monument in itself, but I want to talk about the phrase that is inscribed on it, which says, "Lest we forget." Now, if you're Australian or New Zealander or any Commonwealth country, you'll know that we say, "Lest we forget" on days like ANZAC Day or Remembrance Day or anything related to the wars. The phrase "lest we forget" was taken from a poem written by Rudyard Kipling, I think, called Recessional. Apparently this is the same guy that wrote the movie and the book, The Jungle Book. He originally got the phrase from the Bible. Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 12 says, "Beware lest thou forget the Lord who brought you forth out of the land of Egypt." It is also alluded to Psalm 95, which depicts the world in God's hands, and Psalm 51, in which a grave sinner offers a humble and contrite heart. Lest we forget illustrates how biblical ideas can move through a culture, becoming both less theological and wildly influenced in the process. Today, ANZAC Day is pretty much a very holy, somber day in Australia and probably New Zealand, but I've never done ANZAC Day in New Zealand before. In my opinion, ANZAC Day is like Good Friday. It's pretty much considered religious. Everyone basically puts aside their daily lives to pay respects to the soldiers that went before us, to say without their sacrifice we couldn't have the freedom today. And that is almost like an allusion to without Jesus' sacrifice we couldn't have our freedom today.
Went back to sort of the famous battlefields where Australians were fought. Sorry. So this painting by a gentleman by the name of George Lambert is called ANZAC the Land. Now George Lambert was one of Australia's first official war artists.
I don't know of any other actual Bibles here aside from this one. I can't find any, at least not in the World War I galleries. But I do want to say that I've heard some stories about soldiers carrying Bibles in their breast pocket of their uniform over their heart, and they were shot there, and the Bibles actually saved their lives. So yeah, I don't actually know if that was intentional to put them there with the purpose of wanting their lives saved. But yeah, I've also found out today that that it wasn't just Bibles, but they'd also put in like metal or steel cigarette tins and over there, and that would save them too for when they were shot. Now, Now, another common thing in ANZAC Day dawn services that I can't find any physical evidence of around here, and by the way, this is the World War II memorial, is that the services often have prayers and they often sing hymns, and one of the most well-known hymns that was sung on Anzac Day is Abide With Me, which is about wanting God to be with us in a time of sadness, I'm pretty sure. Anyway, you can look up that song for yourself. Another thing that Anzac Day ceremonies have is that they are often led by chaplains, people who have been chaplains in various wars and whatnot. This is the role of honour of all the Australians who were killed in World War I, and a common Bible verse used on Anzac Day to commemorate them, and even a Remembrance Day, is no greater love than this, than to lay one's life down for one's friends. And that comes from John chapter 15, verse 13, where Jesus is talking about himself, that he will lay down his life for his friends, which is all of us.